Good evening. Welcome to the Monrovia City Council meeting for this evening, Tuesday, June 3rd, 2014. This evening, we will have an invocation by our police chaplain. Mr. Steele, may we have a report of the closed session, please?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Good evening. Prior to the meeting this evening, the City Council and the Board of the Successor Agency to the Redevelopment Agency met in closed session. There are 3 items on the posted agenda. With regard to CS1 and CS2, the Council took no reportable action. With regard to CS3, the Successor Agency Board and the City Council will meet at the end of this meeting to finish that item, and we'll report out at the end of that session.
Thank you. Before we continue, I would like to make a very short statement. At the council meeting of May 20th, I lost my temper. I'm not in the habit of doing this, and I'm disappointed with myself that I did so, because in doing so I lost my ability to communicate effectively in the heat of the moment. My words may have seemed harsh, and some people believe that I was directing them to specific people, and that was not my intent. I hereby offer my apology to all concerned and pledge that moving forward I will strive to maintain my composure and foster effective communication that all of our community deserves. Okay, we will now move on to the public comment period of our agenda. This is the time when anybody who would like to speak to this council about any item that is not currently on the agenda, you may do so. Please fill out a speaker card, and our city clerk, Alice Atkins, will call you.
First, we have Colleen Carey.
Good evening. I'm Colleen Carey. I'm with Coldwell Banker Commercial, and I'm really here representing Jim Manning and the Manning family with regard to the property they own at 1515 South Myrtle. That is the property that is adjacent to the Successor Agency owned property. Behind it, the 2 properties, 127 Pomona, and I forget the addresses, but I think you know the 2 properties I'm referring to that are directly west of the Chevron station. I come tonight because Jim went on your website last night, and he noticed this special joint meeting wherein there was going to be discussion, or maybe there already has been discussion, of perhaps negotiating with a particular buyer, the Wine of the Month Club owner, for, I guess, perhaps purchase of that agency-owned property behind his property. And he simply wanted us to make everyone aware, and we think you probably are aware, that there are several interested parties interested in purchasing not only the Manning property, but also the agency-owned property. And that is because both of those properties together represent a meaningful development opportunity in the city of Monrovia, and therefore the land values of those properties will be greatly enhanced by a joint sale of the properties. We have had, for the Manning property, 6 offers for purchase of the entire property, meaning the Manning property plus the 2 agency-owned properties. And I know that at least 4 of those owners have met with the city and expressed their interest to purchase the property and develop it jointly. And the development would be a mixed-use property, mixed-use development. It would be residential plus commercial. The pricing has been extremely attractive. We have submitted an offer to the city when we saw this today, just so they would have some idea of the pricing on that property, and it was $80 a square foot. So we're hoping that whatever the discussions are for the potential sale to the Wine of the Month Club, that you would step back and realize that there will be, I think, a great benefit to the city, certainly to the taxpayers, for considering a joint sale of that property that would result in a very attractive development with both commercial and residential exposures. We think it would be commercial and residential. That's to be developed as you go down the road and jointly with the city. But the Mannings wanted us to come tonight and just make you aware that they're hoping that there will be complete transparency as you go down this road, deciding who will be the buyer of that property. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. Guillermo Elias, I'm also with Coldwell Banker Commercial. I work with Colleen Carey. I'm co-listing the 1515 South Myrtle property. I second her comments. She couldn't have said it any better. And I just want to say that I've also had trouble finding information about the sale of 123 and 137 West Pomona, item CS3 of the closed session. So if there could be more public exposure of the land that's controlled by the Successor Agency, we could have a better idea of how to market these properties jointly for a better asset that can combined will generate, I think, higher and better economic terms for not just the Successor Agency, but for Mr. Manning, the owner. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else that would like to speak to this council about any item that is not currently on the agenda? Seeing and hearing none, I will close the public portion of the agenda and ask our city attorney if he could give us some information regarding the item that is on our closed session and maybe why it's in a closed session regarding the property in the Station Square area.
Well, it's on a closed session because the Brown Act permits the Successor Agency Board to meet in closed session to give instructions to negotiators with regard to real property transactions. This transaction has been under discussion for a number of months and has appeared on the City Council agenda I would think at least 3 or 4 different times for ongoing discussions. Prior to that, there was a public session held probably 2 years ago, maybe 18 months, 2 years ago, related to all of the Successor Agency owned properties and the potential for disposing of those properties once the Redevelopment Agency was dissolved, and there was a discussion, a proposal made by the current occupant of the structures on the property, as well as some other folks that wanted to talk about potential uses there. So we did have an open discussion at that point. The Successor Agency has approached the owners of the property that was mentioned this evening and had discussions for many years about a joint development on that site back when the Redevelopment Agency was still in business, and at that time the owners of that site were not interested in a joint development. So it has been, since I've been city attorney, something that's been under discussion several times, and the proposed sale of this particular property that we're talking about now has been discussed both in open and closed session now over the course of, I would say, 18 to 24 months. And it's still under discussion. We're aware of a proposal that came in, an email that was sort of a semi-offer today that came in, but that's the only other interest that we have had expressed in the property other than the current tenant in the structures, the church use that's there now. So be happy to talk to, and I'm sure respond to the email that came in today from one of the speakers, and council has not given us further direction. As we said prior to the meeting, we're going to go back into closed session and have additional discussions after you're done in this open session.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.